Good afternoon. Today, we start a series of roundtables with different themes. They are designed to celebrate SPIO's 20th anniversary as a section and to share information about the sport archives. Today, we are debating about the sport archives and international organization. SPIO, the section on sport archives, was founded in 2004 during the ICA Congress in Vienna. SPIO's mission is the preservation and the safeguarding of sport archives worldwide. The section runs seminars. For example, SPIO organizes every 2 years the International Seminar on Sport Archives in Girona. This year, SPIO will hold the seminar on September 30th. We're waiting for you. The section arranges workshops like in Abu Dhabi, the last ICA Congress. SPIO will do roundtables with archives of the international organization, like today, with archives of the universities, with local, municipal, and territorial archives, with photographic and audiovisual expert group, with architectural archives, with human rights archives, etc. SPIO has published a monograph on sport archives, and has collaborated in the publication of the sport archives support guide and a video too. SPIO has created an international directory on sport archives. The results is to yet be posted on the ICA website. At the moment, the directory consists of more than 800 items of organizations holding sport archives that we have compiled through a PICOM project. I would like to take the opportunity to call upon you to include your archives in this directory if you have documentation concerning sports. I introduce you to Véronique Reuter, Secretary of SPIO Bureau. Good afternoon, Véronique.
Good afternoon.
We will start this debate with the sport archives of some international organizations. I introduce you to Montserrat Canela, CEO's chair, and she is the chief of sections, records, and archives in UNHCR. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Okay. So should I start? So thank you very much, Fina. As she said, I'm the chair. I'm having two hats here. I'm the chair of the section of international organizations, and I'm also representing the UNHCR archives with my colleague Nick Sor, who is the expert on sports. I'm the archivist, and he is the sports person. We'll together will give you an introduction to UNHCR. But now I'm speaking as the SIO chair. SIO is the section of international archives, and Fina, we are the first one. We will celebrate our 50 meeting, not in next year. So 50. And what makes the section of international organizations, a very different, everybody's different, but what makes special the international organizations is, first of all, that we are not into no government. So we are not following any archival law on everybody. Each of the organization is different, has a different structure. It is not depending on any organization or any government to take our decisions, which makes archives very special. We are the only archives in our organization. We usually are small, but very active. We don't have a national law to help us. We have to be very convincing always, so very active in selling our services, which makes us usually very innovative in the way we do it. We do archives and records management. Most of the time we have the whole life cycle in the organizations. We are very diverse in the way where we are. And for us, the the International Council of Archives is our main coordination body. It's really there where we all together discuss and make many things, which makes our section very active. That's about SEO, and you will learn more because we have invited 3 different organizations with, as you will see, we have different approaches to archives, but at the end we will all do the same. We collect information, we make it available, and we welcome researchers. So I will introduce first Violete, my colleague Violete. Violete is working for UNICEF, and I will let her to say 2 things about UNICEF.
Thank you, Montserrat. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Violet Matangira. I'm the lead archivist for the UNICEF archives. Maybe just a brief background on what UNICEF is. UNICEF is mandated by the United Nations General Assembly to advocate for the protection of children's rights and also to help meet their basic needs and expand opportunities so that they reach their full potential. UNICEF is governed by the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And on Article 31 of the CRC, it says that every child has got the right to play. And this is where the issue of sport comes in. So in order to promote the welfare of children, UNICEF also develops programs or advocates for children across the world to participate in sporting activities. Therefore, UNICEF is directly involved in the promotion of sporting activities throughout the world, especially in developing countries where children are vulnerable. Now, when it comes to UNICEF archives, we're a fairly new archives. Our UNICEF Archives was established in January 2020. However, it does not mean that we did not have archival collections. UNICEF has been preserving its collections over the years from the time that it started operating in 1946. So we do have materials dating back from 1946. Noting that sport is a powerful global force with the potential to engage a mass audience, UNICEF tries to use the sporting sports to drive the significant outcomes for children and also to fundraise for the cause of children. So you find that we have partnerships, right?
Yeah, Sabine, I think we are going. I think there will be a question about what you are saying.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so maybe we give the floor to
the
Sabine.
next participant.
Yes,
okay,
because and then we will have the time to explain all these things.
Okay, that's all right.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you, Sabine. I don't think,
Okay.
as you're saying it, she will not need to explain what her organization is involved in exports, because this is the soul of what her organization.
Yes, exactly.
Come, Sabine.
That is really the heart of our organization. So hello everyone, I'm Sabine Christe, and I'm in charge of the historical archives of the International Olympic Committee. We are based in Lausanne, as you probably all know, and we have 2 places in Lausanne dealing with archives. Our headquarters in Vidi, it's a place called Vidi, where records management service is based, and I'm really based in the Olympic Museum, also in Lausanne, in another place near the lake called Ouchy. And I'm in charge of about 1.5 kilometers of documents from the beginning of the IOC, the beginning of the Olympic movement, especially with Pierre de Coubertin, the renovator of the Games. We have about 1.5 kilometers of documents, so we are quite small archives. We are open to the public, and we receive people here every day from all over the world, and maybe something different, maybe something special. We are not really, we are in a different, we belong to a different service than our service of records management. I'm in a unit called Heritage, Patrimoine in French, with collections, with images, videos, photos, and historical archives, and our records management service belong to IT. So We work together, but it's not always easy. And maybe we can talk about that later.
Okay, thank you, Sabine. Now I'm giving the floor to Nick, my colleague Nick, who we agreed that he will introduce and then I will follow. So I think, Nick, you can talk about UNHCR and sports, because that's what we need to explain, starting with what UNHCR means. And then I will follow about the archives part. Nick, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Montserrat, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this roundtable. For those who aren't up to speed on UNHCR, we are the UN Refugee Agency, and we work every day in more than 135 locations around the world to improve the lives of people who have been displaced because of conflicts, violence, and persecution. And this includes ensuring that those people can be protected and that their legal rights are upheld, providing assistance, and working with partners and governments to find solutions to ensure that people can lead full and valuable lives. So that's a very brief synopsis of UNHCR, and I guess the next question really is, so what does any of that have to do with sport? And it's it's a very relevant question, and I'll go into a little bit more detail of this in a minute, but needless to say that the sport ecosystem is very, very broad. And it involves not just bodies like the International Olympic Committee and FIFA and UEFA and so on, but it also involves clubs, community-based organizations, refugee-led organizations, communications organizations, intergovernmental organizations, government bodies, and so on. And in some way, many of these entities are interwoven into the work that UNHCR engages in. And sport itself, sport, the noun, the activity of engaging in sport, can also be a very powerful tool to normalize lives that have been severely disrupted. Thank you, Montserrat.
Thank you, Nick. There will be more time to explain. I learned a lot from Nick. He used to stay with us, so we use the time to introduce him to archives. And now I'm talking to the archives. The archives of UNHCR was created in 1951. But the archives were created in 1996. Before the archives were created, there was a system called the Central Registry, which was a kind of proto-records management system. In 1996, the system was stopped, and an archivist for the first time arrived to UNHCR, and we start with the mandate of records management and archives. And we continue doing records management and archives now. What has changed, of course, is that now it's digital, and at that time it was a lot of paper still. We have in paper, we have 10 kilometers of files in our archives, not all of them open, and we open them to external researchers when they are 20 years old. Our archives give access to the information to internal, but also accept external. We are a protection organization, and the archives are a protection tool. So always the first service is for internal, but we do our best to accommodate the many researchers who are interested in archives and in UNHCR, and they have access to it. In the part of digital, we have a digital preservation system with I don't know how many millions, because I don't know, but we are collecting digital information since we were created in 1996 when we start to collect emails. And this was the foundation of our digital archives, which include, again, the same paper, this digital paper, but essentially digital born materials. This is what we do. I think that's for it. And it's very interesting to go through the archives and see what it's sports. You will see some photos about the beginning of UNHCR and the use of sports and how it has changed a lot into the time. And now that we have introduced ourselves, I give the floor to the moderator, Véronique, to take over the moderation. And I became a regular one.
Thank you. First question for our panelists. Can you explain specific cases that demonstrate what relationship sport can have with the international organizations?
So I think we leave to, if you agree, we follow the same order: Violete, Sabine, Nick, with me after Nick. So, yeah.
Okay, so that's me, right? Okay, thank you. As I've mentioned in my introduction, that UNICEF is involved very much directly with sporting activities in order to promote the welfare of children. So you will find that UNICEF does that through partnerships with sporting organizations, with sporting teams, with sporting individuals, or through government programs, through Ministry of Education in the countries that they are involved. UNICEF is actually present in 154 countries around the world, and where they run all these programs, including some programs that have to do with sport. So you'll see that UNICEF has been involved in with the Olympics. That's the first one that I'll mention in the Olympics. All this information, we found it from the archives, the archival materials that we have. And we have evidence that they have been really present in the Olympics since 2007, and they've participated in various Olympics events. And also there's Sport Aid. Sport Aid also, they collaborated with, UNICEF collaborated with Sport Aid to do various campaigns for famine relief in Africa. In 1986, in 1988, and I think in 1986, 37 million was raised for these relief efforts. And then they also do a lot of partnerships with various events like the First Earth Run, the Atlanta Games, the Belgrade Marathon, Moscow Games, soccer matches, all those things. In addition, the UNICEF Division of Communication, it also runs a Goodwill Ambassador program with celebrities. So you see that they've had some connection with Diego Maradona, David Beckham, and even Barcelona. I think they have some program. I don't really have much details about it, but it's something that we've picked out from the archives. Even though I'm not a sports person, I'm just an archivist, but maybe if we had a sports person, they could give further details. But all these things, you will find that UNICEF is participating. There's also an education program that UNICEF runs, which is called Sport for Development, S4D. This one is run through the Ministry of Education in different countries, and it's reaching over 10 million children in over 40 countries, and it has been running for many years. This one is they actually do participate through promoting sports through schools. So they engage in various programs to do that. So the outcomes of that would be social inclusion, child protection, and empowerment, including mental health, because when children are fit, their mental health is also enhanced. So those are some of the programs that UNICEF is running to enhance sports among the children of the world. Right, I think that's all I can say for now. Thank you. Over to you.
Over Sabine. Yeah.
Thank you, Violete. Thank you. So Sabine.
Yes, I don't know exactly how to answer that question, because of course sports is the heart of our activity here. What I can say, maybe it's what we have in the archives about the relation between the IOC and other international organizations. And this history starts at the very beginning of the IOC, with all the first international organizations that we have here in Geneva in particular. And but I'll say it's more a political story than a really sports story. Because that's it. In fact, that's the story of the IOC trying to be an international organization. That's a relation between our president with the all United Nations, other organization presidents, and how they deal together on some topics. That's also the relation during the games with all the boycotts during the 70s, the 60s, the boycotts of the games, and how to deal with that all that diplomatic history. But yeah, I think that's it for me.
Okay, now I defer to Nick, who is the expert, and I will add if he forgets anything, which I doubt. Yeah, Nick, over to you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think that both Violet and Sabine's points are relevant from a UNHCR perspective, and you know, we have many partnerships with the sport ecosystem, as we do with NGO and civil society, and obviously member states, and we see that sport and politics are indeed intertwined. You know, despite the fact that sport is in many ways apolitical and cuts across communities and societies, there is always a political element. From a UNHCR perspective, specific examples of the relationships we have. I mean, the International Olympic Committee, Sabine, is a very strong one for UNHCR, because UNHCR and the IOC both we partner together on the Refugee Olympic Team, which was an initiative that the current IOC president Thomas Bach started, and for which has provided enormous opportunities for refugees and given huge visibility to refugees and the refugee cause, and that demonstrates the power that sport can have to bring social causes to the fore. We've also partnered with FIFA on the Women's World Cup last year, and a campaign around sport for peace. But sport, the activity, you know, is also very, very important. And, you know, right at the grassroots level, UNHCR is working with community-based refugee-led organizations to implement sport activities that, as Violet said, you know, improve the mental health of participants, that support their physical well-being, and you know, improve community relations often. So you know, sport is a multidimensional tool, and the relationship between sport and international organizations is broad. And you know, there are many more examples that we could provide, but given the time limit, I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Just a little about the archives. Of course, the archives reflect what UNHCR does. So since I think it's 2016-14, when UNHCR took sports as a special project and make it grow, of course, the archives, actual archives, the ones we are capturing from now, including web archives, traditional archives, they have a spec that it's sports. But before this, or sports, the information are mixed with the files. So you have files about Kakuma Camp, and they will be sports activities, and they will appear there. They will be more difficult to find because they are mixed with the work of this camp. Well, from now, since it's a big issue and it's a big visibility, and it's, I will say, it's a success story in UNHCR, thanks to people like Nick and all the people he works with, they have an entity. So researchers about the sports will have it easier in the future than the ones now. Sabine, Véronique, over to you. Yeah.
Thank you. A second question for our panelists. Do you have any examples where it can be documented how sport contributes to improving the lives of communities and individuals? Violette?
Okay. Thank you, Véronique. Yes, noting that just an archivist, and in the archives, my mandate is to keep everything that UNICEF produces. I think that question would be best answered by somebody from the program sections, those who actually do the implementation of the programs. But however, from the archives, I managed to dig out just a few pointers to answer this question, that how sport has contributed to the improvement of the lives of communities or children. I found out that the Olympic aid has been used for relief efforts in Somalia, for the famine in Somalia in 1995. Also child survival and development programs in many different countries in Africa. Money has been raised through Olympic, through the interaction or partnerships with the Olympics for child survival and development programs in Africa. Also, from the same Olympics, the expanded program on immunization that UNICEF runs also has been supported through the Olympics partnerships with the Olympics. And also the humanitarian aid in Haiti has benefited also from that. And then also sport aid, funds raised from that have been used to for Somalia, for this Somalia famine also. And in Burkina Faso, issues in Burkina Faso also, Ivory Coast, Chile, all that. So those are some of the few examples. I'm sure if we dig more, we will find a lot of more which will directly answer this question. But this just serves to show that some of the programs actually benefited from collaborations or partnerships with sporting events or sport organizations around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Violette. And
Sabine? Yeah. Yes. So yes, it's the same. We have programs at the IOC for that, especially a department called Relations with NOCs, and NOCs, National Olympic Committees, and they have a program or a subunit called Solidarity. So they do a lot for communities, but it's true that I don't know exactly what they do. We receive, of course, archives from their activities, reports, but I'm not really able to answer to that question with that, because yes, it should be asked to them. Maybe talking about examples, I can maybe talk about the gaps that we have in our archives more than what we have on that topic, because it's true that we have researchers here or questions coming to us about people, athletes, and it's true that we don't have a lot of information about individuals here. We have information about the games, about how it is organized, about the results, but the athletes, they belong to federations, to their countries, or to the National Olympic Committee, and we don't have a lot of information about individuals here, and which is a pity, and which is something that is really often asked to us. When we can, we purchase information about athletes when we find something interesting, like diaries or general information, or several information, more I would say something that could give flesh and body to the Olympics. We like to buy it when we can, but individuals are not really present. I mean, in our archives, even if it's but it's the case for some programs, like I said before. I don't know. It's yes. If you see,
I think we are blessed in UNHCR because Nick has lots of concrete examples from sports person saving people to many examples. So Nick, you told me many ones. So I
Okay,
leave him
thanks.
to talk.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Montserrat. And
Yeah.
I can also probably chip in a little for UNICEF and IOC as well, because we, obviously we partner with both of these organizations in this area. And I know that the UNICEF Research Center, the Innocenti Research Center in Florence, carried out a really important piece of research on the role of sport for development in improving outcomes for children, including refugee children, a couple of years ago, and that was the second piece of research that they did in this area, in partnership with Barcelona Football Club, and there's some very concrete examples in there, and of the positive role that sport can play in children's lives, and again with the International Olympic Committee. The IOC has done, has developed in partnership with many international organizations and others, projects and programs to improve understanding of gender and combat sexual and gender-based violence, to support refugees' lives, to combat crime and violence with the UN Office for Drugs and Crime, and so on. So because I'm on the program side of things a little bit more, I'm maybe a little bit more aware of these specific examples than the archive colleagues. From a UNHCR perspective, we believe that sport has an important role to play in improved outcomes and social outcomes in particular. And we focus specifically on improved social cohesion, which is defined as the interrelationship between different groups and different communities, different ethnicities. Social inclusion, which is those who the inclusion of those who may be marginalized within communities, and improved psychosocial well-being, which is since the pandemic has been very relevant, and people understand much better the important role that a positive mental well-being can have for all of us. So we work on these kinds of programs in many countries around the world, and we've developed with the International Olympic Committee and the Child Protection Agency, TEDESOM, a dedicated toolkit to guide organizations working in humanitarian action on how to use sport to achieve protection outcomes. So we call these protection outcomes, and the International Olympic Committee now has a foundation that works specifically on refugee issues, that is doing a lot of work on measuring the role that sport can play in social outcomes. And UNICEF also are continuing their work on sport for development at Innocenti. So I think there's a lot of positive work going on, and for sure we believe strongly that sport does contribute to improving the lives of communities and individuals. Montserrat, over to you.
Yeah, I would like to share an anecdote, but I think he can know it better than me, because he was the one when he explained me that during the Olympic Games in Rio, he found refugees sporting, improving their health thanks to the Olympic Committee. But explain it, because that was a very good example, very down-to-earth example of how sports and Olympic Committee and Olympic had a very direct impact on people's health. Yeah.
Yes. So sure. This was after the first refugee team participated in the Olympic Games in Rio, and I had the opportunity to travel to Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya after that, where 5 of the athletes who participated in Rio were living. As I woke up one morning, I saw lots of young people out running, and I asked the colleague who was hosting us there in Kakuma, was this normal? Because they were up very, very early, out running on the streets. And she explained to me that pre the Rio Games, there'd been very little of young people out running. But having seen the impact and the opportunity that participating in the Olympic Games in Rio provided refugees in particular, who never normally have the opportunity to engage in the kinds of activities that their peers and non-refugees have, there was a huge boom in young people out running in the streets, because they felt that the opportunity was there for the seizing if they put in the hard work to train to become athletes. So that's a very concrete example of the hope that sport can give a marginalized group like refugees to become to have opportunities and to compete with their peers on a global stage.
Yeah, there's nothing to say after this. It's a beautiful example. Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. A third question. Do you think it's important to keep and disseminate this information?
Yes. Yes, certainly it is very important to keep and disseminate information on sporting activities, because you don't want to be reinventing the wheel all the time. So lessons learned can only be learned from evidence, and evidence is sitting in the archives. So it is important to keep that evidence that these are the programs that UNICEF has been running over the years in relation to sporting activities, so that you can use those lessons that you learned in 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, 2000s to run more programs, future and existing and future programs. Also, more importantly, is that you use evidence of what we have done by showing what we have done before in order to fundraise for more programs, because people can see that this is what UNICEF has done. UNICEF was provided with this funding for these programs, and these were the outcomes, right? So once you showcase the outcomes that we achieved, you are in a better position to get more funding, to get more support for future programs that you would like to run. So I really believe that it is important to preserve sporting activities, records of sporting activities, and also to disseminate them so that people can actually see and have evidence of what really happened and how the funds were used and how successful the programs were, and how also what were the challenges that were faced so that they can avoid them in their future programs, right? So thank you.
Thank you, Violette. Sabine, do you want to answer?
Yes. So I'll say yes. Of course, it is important. Maybe in explaining what we do just every day. In the first, maybe the first example is just to explain. We receive requests of researchers here, but also from our internal colleagues. And I think it's really important to keep this evidence, all these contracts, agreements between IOC and all organizations. And you know, when we have a question like, oh, do you have the first agreement between the IOC and I don't know who in the 80s, and that we can give to our colleagues in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour if we have to find, if we need to search more. It's really important for them, and I would say it's really vital. We need to. It's more than important to keep all that information for the internal administration, but also for researchers that we welcome here every day, and not only people interested in sports, but also general historians, economists. The most consulted series is the Olympic Games, and we also have people from architecture or engineering world, and a lot of researchers from different fields come here to Lausanne to consult archives. And it's true that the Olympic Games is the moment or the event where the IOC is present to the entire world, and it can be really studied from different point of view and different perspective. And yes, of course, it is important. Maybe maybe a word about tomorrow, because we deal with paper from beginning of the century to today, and what we now have as a challenge is really records management and native electronic records. And it's not so easy to deal with that kind of project today. And our big concern is not being able to build this memory as it was done in the 19th and 20th century. So I hope we can deal with that, but it's a big issue and it's a big concern for us.
In the case of UNHCR, as I said, the sports content is very new and it's not open to external, most of it. But it's open, but it's public, like the web archives. But we offer access to our internal researchers, and again, because as a researcher, can explain how they have used the archives to document and prepare the programs, and I will talk a little bit about the how we use it, the public part of it. That's where the part we can open now. I know Nick has research, so he can say, yes, very important. Yeah.
I mean, to the question, I mean, I don't have anything more to say than Violete, really. I mean, obviously, you know, it's important to understand where we've come from and where we're going, and to learn the lessons that we need to learn along the way. When I first came into my current role a few years ago, we had an intern who Montserrat and the team kindly allowed to spend a week trawling through archives looking for mentions of sport, and the intern found some, you know, interesting mentions of sport, particularly in something called the Refugee Magazine and a newspaper that UNHCR used to put out on a regular basis about refugee issues, and there were mentions of sport and images of refugees playing cricket and football and volleyball and so on. And I think that, you know, what this research, very, very basic research, but nice in the sense that it demonstrates the increasing understanding of a positive role that sport can play up to the current day where we are now, where we're trying to use sport as a normal tool in humanitarian response and integrate it into a lot of our programming. And there's a really nice example from the records of the International Refugee Organization, the IRO, which was UNHCR's predecessor, post-war predecessor, so from 1945 to 1951. And there are pictures and text from the Newburgh Rehabilitation Center in Germany, where there was an Olympic Games organized at the Rehabilitation Center for disabled refugees. And it goes on to say that there were 76 contestants from 10 different nations, and in the sport, the sport field was cleared and built by amputees. So there's this little clipping of information that shows how sport was still a very important tool for normalizing people's lives way back when, after the horrors of World War II. And we're still building on that today. Over to you, Montserrat.
Yeah, and replying a little bit about Sabine, how we collect the what it's produced now, which is all digital, and that's the huge challenge for all of us. Because as I said, every time when they ask me, "Oh, are you digitizing everything?" They look, papers. If you don't throw the coffee on the paper and you don't set fire to the paper, they will be preserved. But with digital, we don't capture them now, and they are gone forever, gone for good. So we have 3 programs to try to solve this and to get us. We have a records management system from the beginning, had the capacity to collect what it was emails at the time and all types of information. And although it is very difficult to be systematic and capture everything, I think we have enabled since 1996 to capture a little bit of everything, enough to find information when we have a question. The second part is that we have the web archives. So we, especially when there are events like the Olympics Games, we do a special project to capture the web archives of the Olympic and the Twitter accounts and these things. So we keep a trace, not everything again, but a trace of the activities of refugees in these big events. The third thing is that we have a digital preservation system, which is the one who will, it's the equivalent of the paper archives, which is the one who will and is already working. We put there the percentage of documents that are the ones we want to keep for the future. And they, well, that's what the role is. The big challenge is not, one is to collect them, to get them. The other one is to how to access this information in a secure way, because as you can imagine, UNHCR is full of confidential information. When we open, it's all mixed. So our challenge before, it's ironic that with the paper, it's very easy to spot information that it's confidential and remove it. But with the digital world, this is much more challenging. And it's stopping us from open digital archives that are not already public. Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you, Montserrat and Nick.
Montserrat, can I just say something?
Yes.
Yes, I've dropped in a link to the web archive and into the chat.
Thank you,
so
Patricia.
In particular, where we've worked with the Olympic Committee on capturing the refugee Olympic site. So we worked with you together. We have an MOU on if we need to capture anything relating to the refugee Olympic team, we captured that.
So it's not that
thank you.
Thank you. It's not that I exist in two forms and two voices and two accents. Patricia is our digital archivist and she joining with my link. Thank you, Patricia. So do we go for the questions from the floor or we ask questions? Okay. Who is reading them? To us.
Fina, do you want from the web page of the UNHCR, most members I have seen are public governmental NGO as the members of the private sectors, such as the Tribunal Arbitral du Sport or Court of Arbitration for Sport. It's a question from Cristina Lopez.
Hello, Cristina Lopez. I can answer for SPO. There are currently no members private sector, but we would like, of course. SPO is a section of ICA. You need to be member of ICA to participate in SPO, and if you don't, and for example, you said the Tribunal of Sports, I think there isn't they aren't members of ICA. But if you want, we are open of this. We would like this.
Thank you, Fina. Another question to all our panelists. A question of Sefo Moswo. Are the unique considerations when archiving digital content related to sport, such as social media, videos, or virtual experiences?
Okay. Since Patricia is my second self, Patricia, are you there? Or she log out? Okay, so I will explain for you next year because we.
I am here.
Okay, Patricia,
but,
you want to reply? You want me to do it?
I think you do a better job. I've just supplied the links, and I just like to say that we have a lot of content relating to the last 7 years on the web and social media archive to do with sport. Yeah. Over to Montserrat.
Okay, so we have a contract with a service provider who has this who does the archiving of websites, web content, including Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and these things. They do it for us and they capture. This is the problem one, how you capture. They capture and it's open. They can be searched through or or normal that doesn't go, but ISAG system or exactly through the website. The question is how we select it, because of course we cannot capture everything. So there is a huge, a lot of interaction with our people with our colleagues in social media who tell us what it's important to capture, and we do a selection, like the Twitter accounts of what is important, and there is always a special project when there are the Olympic Games going on. So that's what UNHCR does for this. The sport is everything, but the sport has its own peaks during the years.
And please take a look at our web and social media archives. I've dropped the link into the chat. Every click matters. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I can answer for UNICEF.
Yes, thank you, Violete. Thank you, Montserrat.
Okay, as I mentioned in my introduction that our archives is very new, only constituted into the UNICEF structure in January 2020. So we still have a huge focus to deal with our past, the 10,000 boxes that UNICEF has been keeping from 1946, all those legacy records, we still have to deal with that. However, we also know that we cannot just wait for that to complete because time is running out. We are now in the digital era. So we have a digital preservation framework that we are working on right now, which involves getting the tools that we require to manage digital materials, to preserve and to disseminate digital materials. And in those conversations, we are also looking at social media, web pages, and all those things. And we are collaborating with our communications team who have to deal with all that. So it's just in the plans, but we don't have anything concrete at the moment. But we have the conversations in place for us to make a plan for that, to develop a framework on how to capture that kind of information. Thank you.
Thank you. Another answer or another question? Yes, I'm going to ask you the question of I'm going to ask you the question of Natalie Dannenberg. How do you use your archives in your organization communication strategy?
Okay. Who starts?
Okay, I can start if you want. So it's the never-ending story. It depends. It depends, and it's changing. It's changing a lot depending of how our departments are organized, and how, when a director is going away, someone is coming back, and it can change. Today, what we do at the Olympic Museum, we have a communication service, and they do the job that they have to do with agencies, journalists directly, TVs, or and that's a part of what they do. And when it's requested, they come to us and we open the doors. It can be showing some pieces. It can be telling a story or playing a game between the journalists, the archivist, or someone coming with them, with his team. And that's a part of how we are included in this communication system. communication activities. The other one is social media, Instagram, Twitter, or whatever. We were supposed to be more solicited in especially for Instagram in the next few months or few days, because we have a new team, and which is not easy, is that I'm not always convinced that it's really a strategy. But when someone needs to have access to documents or to illustrate someone for the archives, we are in. But I don't know if it's really an organized strategy like this. Yeah.
Okay. Can I go? We are part of the Division of External Affairs. So we are.
Montserrat, I'm sorry. I just wanted to add something.
Yeah.
Is
okay.
that we are not free to communicate. We always have to be with the service. It's never the archives communicating via social media. Yeah.
Okay. So we are part of the Division of External Relations, which is the one who has all the external communications, and we are seen and we promote ourselves as an advocacy tool. And there's various ways, and we're just discovering more and more ways to use the archives in communication. So, for instance, our visits to the archives are very popular. Donors and partners are invited to visit the archives, and they're really surprised because they always find something about them in the past. Like the first time they connect with UNHCR and these things. So that's very one-to-one. And we used to prepare a gift from the archives for them. It's very touching. They also help us during the International Archives Day. They use the tweet about the archives, and they have campaigns about the archives. And part of the archives is used many times in a generic campaign. They can get information from the archives for this. We are more and more. We had the big GRF, which is called the Global Refugee Forum, which is a big event that takes all the actors and refugees themselves being involved. And in the welcome, there was part of the archives represent in the facts. Say, well, those are the facts about UNHCR. So this is a expanding area for us. It's expanding. The way archives is the tool for communications. I might say that in the last years, when we had a director who really saw the potential, this is growing, the possibility of using archives for communications. Violete? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Considering the situation of us that I mentioned before, that we are very new, we are just starting to rebuild the archives. Our focus right now is to establish intellectual control over our collections, so that at least we have knowledge of what is contained in the boxes that we have. So we are focusing on creating the finding aids, so that this can be the tools that we can communicate to our outside world, to our researchers or clients, to say this is what is in the archives. But internally, we do run a web page for internal staff, for them to know what is available, what the archives is, and what they can find in the archives. At the moment, we do not have any external presence. Our archives is officially closed for anything external, because we are still in the process of rebuilding. And once we are ready for that, then we can start to have some communication platforms that we utilize in order to promote the archives. Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your answers. Thank you for all your questions. We have to finish this round table, and Fina Solà Gazette goes to talk to you.
Well, congratulations to the participants to the roundtable: Violete, Sabine, Montserrat, Nick, Véronique, and those who attended, and ICA Secretariat for help us, Clemens and Marie Paula. Now we will see a carousel of a little documents about these organizations. It has been a roundtable with very unusual contents in which I believe we have learned. Thank you. And remember that we will see you again on February 28th with the Archives Sport in Universities. SPO, Section Sport Archives, with SUB, Section Universities. Thank you.
Thank you, Fina. Thank you from SAO for the opportunity to present ourselves to the wider community. Has been a great activity, and I wish you very successful continuation and a happy birthday.
Thank
Happy
you.
anniversary.
Thank you, Montserrat.
And thanks to the
Thank you.
colleagues, which represent a much more big community of archivists. But we had to select 3, and that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.